Hi everyone, it's Gina and I'm back with another video, and today I'm actually in the kitchen and I'm going to be making some homemade spaghetti sauce, and this is going to be a fairly chunky one because I like chunky spaghetti sauce. We received this huge container of tomatoes and I decided, well, before a lot of them start to go bad, I'll make some homemade spaghetti sauce. Now the one I'm going to be making is vegan, but I'm going to show you options of how you can add in, you know, Parmesan cheese or even cut up meat that you can put into there. But these are really nice tomatoes, and I'm going to show you what I did to prepare them because I'm actually roasting some right now. So let me go ahead and show you how I prepare them to make the spaghetti sauce. So the first thing I did was I gave them all a good wash. Then I removed the little part where it was connected to the plant. I removed that piece, and then I also scored on the bottom, just an X. And I added them to, this is a ceramic baking tray, but at the bottom I coated the bottom with some extra virgin olive oil and just filled the whole container with the prepared tomatoes. The olive oil that I used is this particular one here, and you just want to put enough on the bottom to coat it. What I'm going to do next is just sprinkle a little bit of pink Himalayan salt on top of the tomatoes, and then I'm going to put them into a preheated oven at 425 degrees for about 40 minutes. I'll just keep checking it to make sure. And the goal is to remove the skin from the tomatoes once they're roasted. The skins will be able to come off easier, and it will also concentrate the flavor of the tomatoes as well. So that's what I will be doing next, and that's the reason for roasting the tomatoes prior to making the spaghetti sauce. Alright, so I went ahead and I sprinkled some additional olive oil onto the tomatoes. I also sprinkled some Italian seasoning, which has basil, thyme, oregano, marjoram in there. That was just a signal that my oven is preheated. So like I said, I sprinkled some Italian seasoning, and I also sprinkled some pink Himalayan salt, which will help to kind of pull all of that moisture out of the tomatoes as well. Now, if you have fresh seasoning, you are welcome to use that. I use the dry herbs because that's what I have available. So, but you can choose whatever. You can use the dried, you can use the fresh. It's entirely up to you, but these are now prepared and ready to go into the preheated oven. So what I'm doing here is I cut up 2 medium onions. Like I said, I like my spaghetti sauce chunky. So this is 2 medium to small onions, and then I have a green pepper and a red pepper, and I had a piece of a red pepper already cut up, and these are fairly large ones, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut those up, and that will be part of the spaghetti sauce as well. I also have some mushrooms that I'll be cutting up, and I'll show you those shortly. I went ahead and cut up some mushrooms, which I'm going to be putting into my spaghetti sauce as well. I haven't decided if I'm going to leave them sliced like this or chop them up a bit further. I think I may chop up some and then leave some, kind of chunky, but we'll see. Alright, so what I've done here is I decided to just chop up the mushrooms, and these are portobello mushrooms, by the way, baby portobellos. So I went ahead and I chopped those up, and then I also have the onions, the red sweet peppers, as well as the green sweet peppers already prepared to be sauteed before I start to actually make the spaghetti sauce. Okay, so the tomatoes have been roasted. You can still hear them sizzling a little bit back there. Lots of lots of olive oil still in there. Like I said, I did sprinkle some salt and some Italian seasoning. I also sprinkled a little bit of paprika, which is what you're seeing. It's not burned, that's actually some paprika that I sprinkled on the tomatoes before. So what I'm going to do now is just let this cool, because this is really hot to try to peel them at this point. I will let them cool completely, and then I remove the skins and get them all crushed and ready to make the spaghetti sauce. And I shouldn't say spaghetti sauce, because you can really use the sauce for a lot of different things, but I know a lot of people tend to make the sauce for, you know, spaghetti or lasagna or meat sauces, whatever the case might be. So I'm going to give you a lot of different options at the end of how you know, different ingredients that you can add in to kind of make this your own. So while the tomatoes are cooling, I'm going to go ahead and start sauteing the veggies, and then once the tomatoes are completely cooled, I'll remove the skins, and I'll show you how I do that. It's very easy, actually. And then what I'm going to do is put everything into, let me just show you the tomatoes as they're cooling. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make mine in a crock pot. You can certainly make yours on the stove top, but I'm going to put mine in a crock pot and have it slowly cook down there. The garlic that I'm going to be using is minced garlic. Comes in a jar like this. You can certainly use garlic powder or fresh garlic. I just, you know, this is one of my lazy moments where I'm just going to use a chopped up garlic from here, and I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons, which would be about, I want to say maybe 4 cloves. You can use less or more depending on how garlicky you like your spaghetti sauce. Alright, so this is what I'm going to be using, and I actually get this from the Dollar Tree. It's a nice big jar, already chopped up for $1. But what I'm going to do is drain it, because it does have a little bit of liquid in there. You don't want to put that in with hot oil, because then it's going to splatter. So go ahead, and if you have this, just make sure you're draining it. Allow all the liquid to drain out before you actually add it to the hot oil. Okay? I'm using a fairly deep saute pan because, of course, I'm going to be adding onions, garlic, sweet peppers, and mushrooms. So you want to make sure that you have a good sized pan to saute all of your vegetables as you add them in. And then you can just simply add from here directly into the crock pot, or just continue to make your spaghetti sauce in that particular pot. So this is the garlic that I went ahead, and this is about 2 teaspoons. Like I said, you can use more or less depending on how much garlic, but typically you want to use maybe 4 cloves of garlic for your spaghetti sauce. But this is what I'm going to be using. It's about 2 teaspoons. I added enough olive oil just to kind of coat the bottom of the pan, and then what I did, I went ahead and added in all of that chopped onion that I showed you earlier, which is about 2 medium onions. And I'm just going to saute this down where it's just nice and tender. And then I'll add in the other ingredients as well, and just gently saute them down. So while the onions are sauteing, I thought I'd show you what I did. I just flipped one over. The reason why you make a little cut on the bottom is it makes it easier to kind of grab the skin. Now these are fairly hot, so I'm not using my finger, but like I said, you want to let these cool completely before you try to take the skin off. But see, the skin comes off very, very easily. Okay, so once they're cooled, you can simply use your fingers and just peel the skin right off. Alright, and then once they're all peeled, they'll be ready to go for your spaghetti sauce. Now if you don't want to do the peeling, I mean, that's fine too. You can simply use it in your spaghetti sauce as is, but I know a lot of people don't really like to have that skin in the spaghetti sauce. So, but it's entirely a personal choice. Okay, so you can see the onions have been sauteed and they're nice and transparent. You don't want them to burn. Okay, so you just want them to get nice and transparent like this. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the sweet peppers, and then I'll add in the garlic, and the last thing I'll add in would be the mushrooms, because I don't necessarily want the mushrooms to get too soft before I put them into the spaghetti sauce itself. I do want to have a little bit of chunkiness. Like I said, I love chunky spaghetti sauce. Did I mention that I love chunky spaghetti sauce? Alright, so I went ahead and added in the chopped up red and green sweet peppers, and I'm just going to go ahead and, you know, stir this in, saute this down for a few minutes. I wish you could smell the kitchen right now. It is absolutely amazing. So I'm just going to go ahead and just stir this fairly frequently as this cooks down for a bit. And then I'll add in the garlic. Then I'll add in the mushrooms at the end. And then the veggies will be prepared. And by then, the tomatoes should be nice and cool for me to go ahead and peel them. Oh, I wish you could smell this. Oh. So while the green peppers and while the peppers and onions are still simmering or sauteing down, I wanted to share with you some of the spices and seasonings I'm going to be using in my spaghetti sauce. Of course, we're going to have Italian seasoning, and this one is a blend of basil, it's right here, marjoram, thyme, basil, rosemary, savory, and oregano. If you have fresh of any of these, you can certainly go ahead and use that. And I would probably put in maybe a teaspoon, probably a little bit more of the Italian seasoning. I'm also going to be adding a little bit more of the paprika, some lemon pepper for the kind of an acidic. I know there's a lot of tomatoes which has the acidic flavor in it, but I'd love to have some lemon, or you can even add in some apple cider vinegar into yours as well. And I will be adding just a little bit of chili powder. I like adding chili powder to my sauces. And of course, I also have pink Himalayan salt that I will be adding in. And one of my secret ingredients in making spaghetti sauce is cinnamon. There's nothing like just a dash of cinnamon in your spaghetti sauce. So try it if you haven't tried it. And then of course I'm going to be adding in a little bit of sugar, which will cut the acidity of the spaghetti sauce as well. And I forgot, I did get a few basil leaves from my garden. So these are fresh basil leaves, so I'm going to be throwing those in at the towards the end of the cooking, because I don't want them to wilt down completely, but I do like having some fresh basil in there as well. I've added in the garlic, so I'm going to just go ahead and stir this all up and give that a chance to blend in with all of the other beautiful aromas coming from this pot. I really wish you could smell this kitchen right now. If you've made spaghetti sauce or any kind of sauces with garlic and onions sauteing, you know just how it smells. So I'm just going to let that saute just for a couple minutes. You do not want any of these to burn, because then you're going to start right over. Because one thing you don't want is burnt veggies inside of your spaghetti sauce or any sauces that you're making. You certainly don't want anything to burn. And you can see just that beautiful color. I'm not sauteing it to the point that it's losing the color. So I've added in the mushrooms, and I'm just going to go ahead and give this a good stir to combine everything in there. Like I said before, I like a chunky spaghetti sauce. One of the things that I will be adding is a couple cups of vegetable broth. This is a vegan version, but I will share with you how you can add other things to kind of make this your own, like adding meats, like adding some grated Parmesan cheese. But this particular version that I'm making is vegan. So I'll be adding in, because this has so many veggies, and this will be really thick, so I'm going to go ahead and add in, once I get it going in the crock pot, I will add in a couple cups of vegetable broth. You don't want to add plain water, that will kind of water down the flavor, so adding in the vegetable broth gives a whole other layer of flavors. So what I'm doing, I'm adding the cover on, and I'm going to let that saute just for a few more minutes while I start to peel the tomatoes. So I went ahead and I peeled the tomatoes, and I didn't get like absolutely every piece of the skin off, but what you're going to notice is once I'm cooking it, that the skin, once I crush these all up and I put it into the crock pot to start cooking, you'll notice that the skin that remains in here will actually float to the top, so I could easily just remove it. So don't, if you really don't want any skin in yours, you can be really picky about trying to get every piece of the skin off. But know that whenever you're cooking it as well, that the other skin that's left behind, you can always just scrape it off the top once you're cooking it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get these crushed. And you can simply use like a potato masher, or you can use a fork. You can throw it into a food processor. It's entirely up to you how you want to do it. I don't have a food processor or anything like that, so I'm just going to simply use, just start to use a fork and just start to just kind of break it up. Okay, so let me go ahead and get that started. Quick tip: before you start to mash, you can just simply take a knife and just kind of, you know, quarter them to make it a lot easier to cut them up. So that's what I'm going to do, is just, and I'm going to leave, see all of this sauce in here, that's not burnt, that's actually the olive oil mixed with the paprika and a little bit of other seasoning that I had put in here before. So I'm just using a knife to just kind of slice them up just a bit before I start to mash them. And I just realized that I do have potato masher, so I'm going to be using this to crush up the tomatoes. So just give me a moment and I'll show you. So I went ahead and just sliced up the tomatoes just using a knife, just to chop them up just a little bit to make it easier whenever I'm just, you know, crushing them down with the potato masher. Oops, sorry. So here's what I'm just going to use this, and this might be easier if I just put it into the crock pot and just crush it up in there, so I'm not gonna, you know, run the risk of like splattering anywhere. But I just wanted to show you how I really crush down the tomatoes after they're roasted and peeled. So you just use, this is so much easier just to use the potato masher, or if you have a food processor, you can certainly, after they're cooled, just throw them into the food processor and get them ready that way, and then put them into your crock pot. Or well, like I said, I'm doing it in the crock pot to cook it down slowly. But if you're doing this on the stove top, you can also do the crushing right there inside of the pot that you're cooking in. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and just finish this part up, and then get ready to put everything into the crock pot. But see how easy that is using the potato masher. So I'm going to work on this just a little bit more, get this nice and crushed. I'm not going to like pulverize it too much because, like I said, I like a chunky spaghetti sauce. All of the veggies are nicely sauteed. I wish you could smell this. Oh, the aroma is beautiful. So you can notice, you can still see the color. There's mushrooms, garlic, onions, sweet peppers. And then once I get this all into the crock pot, I'm going to be adding in a few other spices like I mentioned earlier. So this is now off. Alright, so I went ahead and I crushed down all of the tomatoes. There's still a little bit of chunk to them. Not completely pulverized, but you can certainly make yours as smooth as you want, as chunky as you want. So I'm going to go ahead and get it prepared to put into the crock pot. So I will be back with that. So I've got the crock pot rinsed out and ready to go, and I'm going to turn this on to low and start to add in all of the ingredients. So the crushed tomatoes have been added to the crock pot, and I'm going to go ahead and add the rest of the ingredients as well. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. Here are the sauteed vegetables. I'm going to go ahead and add those in and get every drop in there. So I'm going to go ahead and add in all of the herbs and spices in there, and I'm going to add in just the sugar, and the sugar actually helps to cut the acidity of the all of the tomatoes. I'm going to add in, this is just a cup of vegetable broth. Let me add that in. And then I'm going to add in just a dash of the cayenne pepper. Give me a second, let me open it. And you can see I really only have one hole opened right there because you don't want a ton of this to come out. So you just add in just a, and you can certainly add more in. That is good. You can add more in if you really like spicy. but just to give it just a hint of spice, of heat. All right, so let me go ahead and I'm gonna get all of this stirred in. Then I'm gonna cover and let this all simmer down. And I'm gonna let this cook for probably 3 to 4 hours on low. Let me move this away just a little bit. Steam is steaming at the camera. Like I said, I love chunky spaghetti sauce. You don't have to make yours as chunky, or you can easily just kind of blend up some of the veggies if you don't like them to be so chunky. It's looking really good. It smells so good. And what I'm going to do is just taste it throughout to make sure I have just the right blend of seasoning. But I know I probably would have to add just a little bit more salt. You can certainly also add, if you have some tomato paste, you can certainly add in a little bit of tomato paste, but this is looking really good. So that I don't think I'm going to need any more. So I'm going to just let this, oh gosh, let me just grab some so you can see. Just look at that. I'm going to just let this cook down for a few hours, and I will be back to share the progress with you. Okay, so I did end up adding a little bit more cayenne pepper. It wasn't quite hot enough for me, so I added in a little bit more cayenne pepper. I did add in about another 1/4 teaspoon of salt as well, in addition to a dash more of cinnamon. And then now I'm going to just let this cook down for the next few hours, and I will be back. You can do a taste test. It smells amazing already though. I really wish you could smell this. So if you do try this recipe, please let me know by posting in the comment section below. It's very simple, and if you don't like chunky, you can easily just blend up your vegetables before you put them in. But I like to have all of those different layers of flavors in my spaghetti sauce. So if you don't like yours to be chunky, you can certainly, even at this stage, when it's finished, you can certainly blend it up or process it a little bit more in a food processor. You know, you don't necessarily have to leave it this chunky, but I just happen to like the chunky. All right. But if you do try this, I would love to hear your feedback on it by simply posting in the comment section below. But I will be back to do an update on the flavor and the ending as well, because I'm going to let this cook down in the crock pot for the next 3 to 4 hours. So I did a bit of a taste test. It's been cooking for about an hour and a half, and it tastes really good. But I'm going to add in, because I don't think it's not red enough for me, I'm going to add in a can of tomato sauce, just a small can. I think this is 8 ounces. Is that what it says? So it's an 8-ounce can of tomato sauce. I was looking for some tomato paste, but I didn't have any, so I'm going to go ahead and add that in. If you have tomato paste, you can certainly use that. And then I'm also going to go ahead and add in the basil leaves that I picked earlier. And I'm going to stir all of that together. I really love how it looks, and it smells amazing. It really does smell amazing. Now, if you wanted to, if you had, just some plain old pasta sauce, you could certainly add to it. But for now, I'm just going to add the tomato sauce. And it smells so good. It tastes really good. I got the right balance of the herbs and spices in there. And like I said, I like chunky spaghetti sauce. So this is perfect for me. What I'm going to do is probably divide this into half, and I'll use half of it to mix with some ground beef, because my son, he likes spaghetti sauce with meat in it, of course, because he's not vegetarian or vegan. I am. So I will divide this up so I can use some of it for the, to mix with ground beef, and then I'll probably add some Parmesan cheese to that as well. And so you can certainly, if even if you don't eat meat and you wanted to add some Parmesan cheese, you could certainly do that with some of it as well. So it looks really good. Smells incredible. It really does smell delicious. So I'm going to let this cook down again for about another hour and a half, or until the timer goes off, which is, it says about an hour and 15 minutes. And I think it will be ready to go from there. All right, we'll see you shortly.